Welcome to Relationships Through the Looking Glass. While here in Wonderland, we're going to discuss topics and share stories to help clear up distorted views of relationships. We provide a safe place for balance and honest conversation. While each episode can help all who listen, the focus will be on the community of color. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
10, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 10, our live episode of Relationships Through the Looking Glass. So with every episode that we do monthly, we are going and recapping our month in review. So the episodes we're going to be talking about, the first one, what was worst, emotional or physical affairs. We got a lot of feedback off of that one. So we're going to kind of throw some stuff around where that's concerned. The next episode we did was the second episode from the series, Our House is on Fire, where myself and Mr. Blackovation, also known as Darrell, spoke about Sure It's Your Life, but who's watching? And it was basically talking about how your own individual decisions that you make can have long-term impacts on the generation behind you. And then the next episode we did this month is When It's Time to Go. And that was focusing on ways to determine when it's time to end the relationship, or the flip side of it, is it something that's worth fighting for, and how to maneuver where that's concerned. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in. We're going to do a mental health check for everybody who's on the stage, and then we're going to just go ahead and start our recap. So we're going to go ahead and start with Chris. How was your week? What's been going on?
My week's been pretty good. Just as far as mentally I'm doing good. Just everyone out there, if I'm all good. I'm all good.
If you believe it, I believe it. That sounds good. What about you, Keisha? How was your week?
My week has been a bit challenging. I have a very close family member that's critically ill, and it's been very emotional this week, but I'm pressing through and keeping the faith.
Absolutely. Like always, we'll be keeping you in our prayers, your family in our prayers as you go through that time. A lot of us are very aware of how that feels, and it's very stressful. So definitely keeping you and the family in the prayers, Keisha. And how about you, Nicole? How was your week? How's things going on your end?
Well, first, Keisha, I'm so sorry to hear that. My heart goes out to you and your family. As far as my week goes, I had a really good week. I found a tribe of people that are like-minded and willing to support me and vice versa. So it always feels good when you find a group of people that are open to listening to you, finding value, and being supportive. So I had a good week. But I want to say, I'm sorry to say Pisces season go. I had a good time during Pisces season.
Yep, the mermaids have gone back to their mermaid cave, sadly. So we have Darrell here. Darrell's on the stage. How are you, Darrell? How has your week been? What's been going on with you?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, week's been pretty good. Definitely sorry to hear about what's going on with Keisha and your family. Yeah, week's been pretty good. I am dealing with some family issues myself. Youngest sister has suffered some seizures, so we're trying to figure that out right now. But I mean, vitals and everything is good, so she's good on that end, but she suffered some seizures. So again, we're just trying to figure that out.
Wow, we'll definitely keep your family in our prayers as well. Seems like a lot of us are going through some time, so it's always good to know that we have a community that is here to stand and hold space and send prayers up when needed. I want to say hello to all the listeners who are chiming in. I see Danielle from A Survivor's Voice. Hey, definitely if you want to come on up to the stage and join us on the mic, just hit that call-in button. And I see the other individuals. You can also interact with us in the chat box. But we're going to go ahead and jump on into our first episode of the season. Of the month. And yeah, this one was a doozy for multiple reasons. The topic was, what's worse, an emotional or physical affair? and everybody who was participating, we had our own voices as we talked about it. We did a poll on the Instagram page, and it was 100% that said emotional. 100% of the individuals who responded said emotional affairs are worse. So I'm going to jump back out to our panel. I'm going to start with Darrell, because Darrell wasn't with us on that conversation. What's your opinion with that, Darrell, when you're talking about emotional or physical affair? In your opinion, what's worse and why?
Shame on you for putting me first, but anyway, I'll go. I'll suck it up.
Thank
But
you.
definitely emotional. I mean, once somebody has your heart and your mind, and there's no return from that. So that's very difficult to deal with when somebody has your significant other's heart. And at the drop of a dime, if you see a phone call or something like that from them, they're immediately going to pick that up. They get the attention. You no longer have their attention. They have your mate's attention. So that's really tough.
Now, I'm going to ask about that. So, what does that look like when it's just I feel this is going to be an icky. Oh boy. What does that look like when it's just a friend? You know what I'm saying? What does that look like when it's just a friend who's calling, and say you're in a relationship with somebody and that person is like, "Hey, I was going through something. I need to talk to this person." Is that the same thing, in your opinion?
That's not an emotional affair. I wouldn't categorize that as an emotional affair.
Okay, so what's an emotional affair
that's a
to
friend.
you?
I mean, that's a friend reaching out to another friend to get some kind of support, and that's the way I'm reading it. But yeah, when somebody literally, I mean, you're talking about emotional affair. Most of the time, when people have affairs, they're not gonna. We kind of talked about this. They're not gonna put that in the light of day. It's not gonna be broadcasted. It's gonna be something that's hidden and tucked away until they feel safe enough to bring that out, or the current relationship ends. So they're not going to expose that to the light of day, and that means they're going to keep everything under wraps. Again, if they have a partner, that partner is not going to get the type of attention that they once had gotten from them. All that attention is going to be focused towards the new individual.
Okay, so for you, an emotional affair is different from just having a close friend who is of the opposite sex, correct?
I mean, if it's been established that you have that it is a friendship, and it is truly that, a friendship, I wouldn't necessarily consider that an emotional affair if it is a friendship.
Okay. So for you, it turns into an affair when
you cross
hidden.
those boundaries. When you cross those boundaries, when you begin to cross those boundaries, and whatever parameters that you have set up, and cross over from that friendship into something more intimate, then yeah, that's a little bit problematic.
Okay. So you are saying it's possible for a male and a female to be friends, and that's it.
Let me say this. The nature is stronger than law, right? Nature is definitely stronger than law. So we can set up the parameters, we can set up boundaries, we can set all of that, but the law of attraction is what it is. So yes, you can have a friendship, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be an attraction to the opposite sex. Now, there are, and I'm going to say this for the men, for the most part, you have predatory men who will establish friendships with women to see whether or not if they can actually get something out of that friendship. It does happen all too often. Some guys would be waiting in the wing to see whether or not if they can actually do what they're intended to do. But then you have males that are not predatory. They can actually.
Okay, that makes sense. And Keisha, because you weren't on that episode either, what, in your opinion, and thank you, Darrell, for that brought a lot of clarity to some of the conversations that were being had as it referred to that topic. Emotional or physical affair, Keisha, which one's worse, in your opinion?
I think emotional, some people, not speaking of myself because I'm emotional myself, but some people have the ability to just sleep with someone and not have any emotional attachment. So If you have the ability to connect with someone on the emotional level, I think that is so much stronger than just having just like a simple one night stand. That emotional attachment, I mean, that thing connects to your heart sometimes almost instantly or very quickly. So I think that emotional bond is it's even harder to break because in I think one of the ways of identifying too, if you have that emotional bond, if something is going on in your world, if you feel like the first person you want to call is that person instead of your mate, you definitely got some type of emotional attachment. And even if you're not in a relationship with someone, if something is going on, good or bad, the first person you want to call, and I'm not talking about just like a homeboy or this is your best friend, but someone of the opposite sex or someone that you have been drawn to. If that's someone, one of the first people you want to call, then that's one of the indicators, I think, of letting you know that you may have an emotional attachment.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, my question then, and this is for anybody on the panel at this point, when you want somebody or you are in a relationship with somebody and you do have friends, like it might be, look, I have never met anybody who was like, I don't have any friends of the opposite sex. I don't. I've never met that. If they're out there, then hello, I'd love to meet you because I don't know. That's just interesting to me. But then when you get in a relationship, so are you saying that you're supposed to drop all your friends of the opposite sex who, if your mate feels uncomfortable? Because I think we've had that conversation too. If somebody's mate feels uncomfortable and says, I don't want you having friends of the opposite sex, like, are we supposed to drop your friends of the opposite sex? Like, how does that work? And that's for anybody on the panel.
That's very delicate, but at the same time, see, here's the thing to me, in my opinion, expose it. Don't if you've had this friendship for quite some time and you're in a relationship with somebody, with your significant other, and for some reason it's difficult for you to expose that relationship, that's a problem to me. Like I don't think again, if that relationship has been established before you meet your significant other, right? By all means, that's a relationship that's been established. But if it seems to be problematic for you to expose that relationship to your significant other, that's where the problem comes in at. That's where the problem comes in at. So again, if I'm in a relationship and I have, let's just say, a homegirl, I'm cool with her, and for some reason I want to relegate that relationship away from my partner for some strange reason, you got to understand the perception of it. Why would you hide that relationship? Why is that relationship not something that can be exposed? You follow what I'm saying? So it's very delicate in my opinion. And when it gets to a point where people are very more protective of that relationship than the current relationship between you and your partner, that's a problem.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And we have another visitor who really is not a visitor. If you have been following the history of the podcast, I do have a co-creator by the name of Markis, and he's here with us this evening. So, what say ye, Markis? Come off the mic, let everybody hear you. What's your opinion on the topic about emotional or physical affairs? Like, what's worse to you? And then the follow up question. So, if you have a lot of female friends and your mate's like, I don't really want you having any female friends, do you drop all your female friends? So, what's your opinion there?
First and foremost, hey, how everybody doing? Well, yeah, on that situation, I think emotional is the worst because it can get nasty. As far as like, I was, just listening to Darrell, what he was saying. I mean, I agree with most what he was saying as far as like when you overstep those boundaries, when you go outside the parameters where you're doing more than what you normally do in that relationship, and you're, especially if it's an emotional affair that's not with your significant other. When you start, because when that does happen, for that person that's in an emotional affair, that significant other is not going to get, it's going to start, he or she is going to start getting less of what they used to get. And that does happen. And then that can get nasty. Then,
So what does that look like what if you're friends with the people beforehand and you just have a really close connection and then the relationship starts? So you just cut off your people that you were close to before?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because, if you, okay, say if I got a girlfriend or whatever, like, I use Keisha, for example. She's, a friend of mine. I know her. She know me. And then a girl that I'm talking to comes in and whatever. And of course, I'm not gonna hide I'm not gonna hide Keisha from her. Now, if I was hiding Keisha from her, then it might be a problem.
You think?
Because my intentions might be different for Nikisha on the other perspective than if I don't want my present girlfriend to know then. You know what I'm saying?
Can I chime in real quick, since I'm never on these panels on a frequent basis? Like I said, to me, I don't think we have the right necessarily to tell someone that you can no longer be friends with that individual. However, again, my thing is that if you cannot expose that relationship to the light of day with your current situation, that's where the problem comes in at. And let's be honest, and let's be honest, there's been a lot of friendships that's been established, not necessarily on the basis of true friendship. Some of those friendships come about as a result of maybe you didn't work out in a relationship, right? You didn't work out in a relationship. Maybe you guys didn't have the chemistry. Maybe you had sex, right? And you say, okay, it's cool that we're just friends. That's a problem, right? That's a huge problem. So we keep these people around for whatever strange reason, right? We categorize them, we're cool with them, and then for some odd reason we think we can pull them along or string them along, especially the ones that we've already had an intimate relationship with those individuals. We want to string them along and pull them along into the current relationship, knowing that is going to cause some type of turmoil. We know that automatically, but for some reason we do it. That's a problem. And I think it's something that's unfair, it's unjust to the new partner, right? Not to expose that information to the light of day, for them to be able to make a genuine decision on whether or not if they want to deal with that. Because a lot of times we don't expose those relationships like they should be exposed. We want to hide them. Because if our significant other really knew about those relationships, 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, I'm not going to deal with that.
That makes sense.
Out the door.
And this episode we're going to be doing a part 2 to this, just because we got a lot of feedback from this episode where people requested to have a part 2 for a different perspective. So yeah, this is going to be a whole nother episode on its own. So we're going to go to the next episode that we had, this episode in the series, Our House is on Fire, where we had Darrell from Mr. Blackovation, such a mouthful, I'm just going to say Darrell, from All Things Black podcast, who had the conversation with me about, sure, it's your life, but who's watching? And this is referring to our own individual behaviors and how they have an impact on the generation that's coming behind us. And we've had a lot of feedback on this as well. So again, opening up to the panel, Chris, Keisha, Nicole, Markis, because you guys weren't on this episode, we were talking about, like, for me, the $40 female phenomena, right? And how, yeah, sure, that's your life, but the impact that mindset has on the generation behind us is something that we have to talk about, right? So when we look at what people do, and not in a judgmental way, but there has to be some responsibility, right, for our actions and how it's going to impact the kids watching. So I'm going to throw it out to the panel again. Like, what, in your opinion, I'm just going to go around the room on this one, starting with Chris, what, in your opinion, is something that's going on in our culture at the moment that can really have some harmful repercussions for the generation behind us? And this is just your opinion, right? No right or wrong, but what are you seeing in generations right now that our children are watching that might have an impact that isn't so good?
I would say the main thing I see nowadays, like talking with the next generation coming up, it's like everything is they want it now, and it's they got to have it now, but they don't want to work towards it. They want that instant gratification, and you can see that a lot with social media. And everybody wants to be a YouTube sensation or some type of influencer, and you want that instant gratification, that instant fame, rather than, I know, like when we were growing up, if you asked us as kids what we wanted to be, it would be like doctors, lawyers, truck drivers, those type of jobs like that. But now if you ask the kids now, it's always got to be something for us entertainment or YouTube or TikTok, and it's like they want that instant gratification, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I mean, that's only for a select few people. So it's like you have everybody going for this small area. And then, okay, what's going to happen in, let's say, 25, 30 years if no one else wants to be the doctors, the lawyers, those type of professionals? Everybody wants to be this social media king or queen. And it's like, okay, where is everything headed? So I know that's the thing that I see.
I never thought about that either. That's really good insight. And that's a lot of where parenting needs to step into play, right? Same question for you, Keisha. Like, what are some things that you're seeing right now in our culture that, if not checked, is going to have some impact on the kids coming up?
Level of respect. It's like there is no respect for adults anymore. Kids will pass by you cursing, and everything is certain things that you just wouldn't do when an elderly person was passing by or older person is passing by. And I'm just thinking, like, the level of respect for not just for elderly people but for each other is just slowly disappearing. And I think that's definitely going to be an issue years to come. And just to add on to what Chris was saying, I totally agree too. It's like everything is pretty much a microwave type of situation where instead of actually wanting to go to school and stay the additional years, become a doctor, it's like quick. How can I make this quick money? And in society right now, I mean, it's at this moment, some people pretty much need that quick money. But then in long term, if we don't continue to have the people who are, working to become doctors and lawyers and all this just different occupations, then, I mean, what are we going to have years to come? So I think that's also an issue too.
Absolutely. And Nicole, what say ye on the matter?
For me, it is demasculation of the men, specifically the Black men. And then on the opposite end, it's the masculine women. Like it's not okay to down the next human. And I think that by downing them for their faults, whether it's emotional issues or alcohol or drugs, like we are putting each other down to where it's now not cool to have pride in what you're doing and the way you move. Like if you are prideful, there's going to be somebody that rips you down. And the majority of the time, like we meaning Black folks, are tearing down our leaders, and the majority of the leaders should be Black men. And by us doing that, we're not allowing them to do what they do, which would be lead. And then in turn, it comes back on the Black woman that it is their fault. So it's like the putting down of each other is, to me, it's our children are watching us do that, and then they're going to act accordingly. And I don't see that in a positive manner, resulting in the culture moving in a positive direction.
Right. That's some good insight. And Markis, what is your opinion, like when you look at the culture right now, like what are some behaviors that we're seeing that's kind of being glorified that's probably going to have some negative impact in the long run?
I think for me, when I look at mostly what impacts the younger generation, it's the media. Like what's ever fed into the media, or whether it is how dress, how they do, how they act, the quick piggyback off of Chris and Keisha and everyone about the microwave and how they promote certain things in media to say, hey, you can get this, you can get rich like this, or you can get this quick, Bitcoin, all this other stuff. I mean, but not really showing nobody wants to work for it anymore. Everything's like that microwave mindset. Like if I do this, I can get this. But in reality, it's like you do this, you're gonna stay broke. You got to work for it. You got to claw through the nails and everything. You just got to work for it, and nobody wants to work for anything anymore. Also, with the disrespect, I even say, in some way, it's the whole goes back to the parenting. Parents ain't parenting. You got parents going out with their kids and things like that, and you having babies. The same thing that happens, and it's generational. Curses all throughout the thing. It's just a generational thing. It revolves in a circle until we learn how to stop it and stick up for it and start getting these kids to respect each other, and you wouldn't have these problems if that happened. But it all starts from the home, and everything starts from the home. So for me, it's the media, the mindset, but just the different role models that we have in today's society that puts off these personas that you can have this life if you do it this way. I don't want to say names or anything like that because I don't want to make anybody mad, but it's just the media itself, social media, all this other stuff that people just start following people and just looking at things, how they did their stuff, but they never go back and do the history on how they got there. You know what I'm saying? You can do, like rappers, you have rappers that think it was an overnight sensation, but they took years and years to get to where they are now. It's not instant gratification. So that'll be mine, like the media and not and for the home to start being parents and not being friends.
Yeah, that's important. And Darrell, I know we had a whole hour of what we were thinking, but we've even had some follow-up conversations after the episode and some of the videos that you've sent, kind of piggybacking on what we talked about. But is there any kind of wrapping it up in the bow with a bow, in your opinion, on what we need to do? So we just talked about some things that we are seeing, but in your opinion, what are some things we need to do? I know Markis just said we need to start parenting, like get out of the mindset of being friends and be parents. What are some other things you think we need to do, Darrell, as it relates to changing some of this and turning that boat around?
Beginning to control our sexual appetite. We have this unbridled, uninhibited way about us in our community where we think it's okay to just willy-nilly have sex with no consequence, right? So nobody's really talking about that portion of it where we begin to really control our sexual desires, right? I mean, everybody's talking about the problem with single mothers or the fact that you have quote unquote deadbeat fathers, but nobody's talking about how that happened, right? It seems as though we get a pass on the sex, right? Because sex is normal, it's a natural thing, and we get a good feeling from it, the endorphins and the release and stuff like that. So we don't really look at that as a problem. But it's definitely you can go over like you and I had that conversation on the episode, and I was telling you about the young lady that thought it was nothing to have sex with 20 men in one night. She thought it was absolutely nothing, right? And then you have other people running around here talking about soul ties and all these other things, and not understanding what that does to you psychologically, right? And not only psychologically but physically, and you really don't get a chance to really get a chance to really love the individual that you are going to be paired with in the future. That's a problem. So it seems that it's not a big thing for us to just want to have sex. It's not a big thing for us to want to go to a strip club. It's not a big thing for us to want to go to an underground sex party, right? It's not a big thing for us to listen to sexual content on somebody there we go, on a rap record or R&B record or watch it on television. We're inundated with these images on a consistent basis, and we wonder why we have these urges. The urges are natural, but something is forcing us to do these things. So you have to unplug, and that's what you and I were talking about. You got to unplug. The sex is natural, but what's unnatural is how we carry it out.
So a question for that: how do we get here? How do we get from running countries and everything to this avatar of being the sex doll that the whole sex controls how I think and what I do? Like, where did the ball fall? Where did we drop the ball? Like, in Europe, and they're like, how do we get here?
We didn't drop the ball. We were indoctrinated, so to speak, with that ball. We were indoctrinated. So you got to remember, when we came here, we were stripped of everything: culture, religion, God, all of that. And we were given a new form of education, and that education was branded into us, right? You got to remember, there was a lot of us that were put into breeding farms, right? And some of us ended up having sex with our own family members just to produce more slaves. So this stuff is actually inbred in us, right? What comes out is actually in. So if you're a freak outside, it was because it was inside. There was something that was ingrained or put into your system, into your DNA. You can get rid of it with work, but there was something that was put into you, right, from around that time to your great-grandma, your great-grandfather, stuff like it just got passed down. And our problem, though, here is that if we were left alone and given the right education instead of the indoctrination that we get, Black people on a consistent basis are spoon-fed these ideas. We're spoon-fed these notions. We're spoon-fed these ideologies. And we don't have anything to kind of pull that kind of poison out from us, because it seems like it's natural to us. We feed from it. I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to listen to this nasty song. I'm going to get up in the morning, later in the afternoon, I'm going to sing the nasty song. I'm going to play the nasty song around my children because I don't see anything wrong with it. Right? But now subconsciously, this information that data is being put into the child. And the child sees daddy or somebody or mama, swing into it like it's nothing. Like it's absolutely nothing. So you got to begin to control that. Like it's in the atmosphere, absolutely. Well, where do I go? I can't hide from it. You can turn it off, to be totally honest.
But people profit from it, right? That's what we were talking about. When you profit from it.
The hell with people profiting from it. The hell with that. Turn it off. Because it's just that simple. Turn it off. If you don't
y'all.
Like
Darrell said, turn it off. Turn it off.
If you don't like a certain thing, I'm sorry for being that blunt, but if you don't like a certain thing and you have a problem with it, and you look down the wheel of time and see what it produces, and you're looking at the end result, because remember, you and I talked about causality, cause and effect, right?
Right.
One of the things I know for certain that Black people do not understand and cannot grapple with is the law of cause and effect. I'm gonna smoke this weed. It's not harmful. Nothing wrong with it. Okay. They say that about cigarettes, but somehow or another, secondhand smoke was more detrimental or dangerous than firsthand smoke. Right? Cause and effect. So again, the more you feed on that crap, whatever it is, you become that. They say, as a man thinketh, so is he, right? Form follows function. If your brain is thinking this on a consistent basis, well, hell, that's what you are. I don't give a damn what you say. You tell people you are. Your activity says what you are. So you can say you're an angel all day long. I'm God-fearing all day long. I'm a professor all day long. But what's your activity? And excuse me for laughing, but I'm saying, what's your activity? Your activity tells people what you are.
Exactly. So and I think for me,
if I'm sleeping with 20 guys and I don't want to be called or labeled a certain thing, You don't have to worry about me labeling you. You labeled your
You're
damn
doing it
self.
yourself. You're doing it yourself. Right. Yeah. And I think for me, the biggest issue is the relationship between the Black man and the Black woman. I see how society, I see how culture really kind of puts us against one another to where it's normal. It's in the music, the disrespect. And I know we were talking about the disrespect that children have to adults, but the disrespect between man and woman, and like what was referenced in that episode, the Lynch papers, how to, have us against one another is to keep us separated. And I don't see enough being done as it relates to that. And I mean, obviously, the field that I work in, I have a higher awareness of behaviors that go on and the high correlation of domestic violence and murder and femicide and how that relates to relationships. But I also noticed that there's no work being done. There's hardly any work being done. There's hardly any money going towards it. And it's, well, this is how we grew up. This is what we saw in our family. It's okay. We glorify being beaten for some people is a badge of honor. And I can go on a whole soapbox about this, which I won't. Everybody knows how I feel about it. But that's something that has to be discussed. The relationships between men and women, Black men and women specifically, there has to be a conversation about what's happening. And we can talk about it all day, but if there's no action and follow through, and that's something we talked about too, the follow through is where I see we're losing. People have an awareness of what's going on. People know what's going on. Everything that was just talked about on this panel, we have an awareness of what's going on. It doesn't seem like people have an idea of what to do to fix it. And that's something that we really have to discuss. That's why the whole Our House is on Fire series is up and running. Our next episodes, we're going to talk about mental health, the stigma of mental health in the Black community, and the disappearance of the Black family. All of these things have an impact on how we are going to progress as a people, and we have to have a discussion about it. So that was that episode, Our House is on Fire. The next episode that this month we talked about was When Do You Know It's Time to Go? And this focused on relationships and knowing when a relationship has met its expiration date and it's time to wrap it up and move on, or is it something that can be worked on? So going back up to the top with Chris, you had your statements on when did you feel or when did you knew that it was time to go. But if anybody didn't hear that episode, give us one example for you when you would know that a relationship was over.
And I mean, like I said before, it's over when I don't feel at peace, where I'm always around the person and I'm on edge and I just feel like it's like just a constant battle, not even with just that person, just I'm battling myself as well with that person. Just it's a battle within. And you just have to know, like, hey man, like my peace and sanity is worth more than what this relationship, whether it's been 6 months or 6 years or 20 years, have to know when you get to that point that it's time to go ahead and give it up.
Right. And Keisha, what about you? For anybody who wasn't listening to that episode, like what was one thing for you that sealed the deal that you knew it was time to go?
When the thrill is gone, after putting in all efforts to make the relationship work, it's still not work. When there's no more trust, those are different areas of, well, indicators instead of areas, indicators that lets me know, hey, this is over.
Right. And same thing, Nicole. What, in your opinion, for you would be one thing that would indicate that the relationship had met its expiration date?
I agree with Keisha and Chris. When trust is gone, when I feel more anxious or angry or sad more than I do happy and positive, that's an indication to go. And then also if I feel like I'm compromising my values, that's definitely a sign to go.
All right. And Darrell and Marcus, you guys weren't on this episode, so starting with you, Darrell, what, in your opinion, for you would be an indicator that a relationship has met its end date?
When there's no more harmony or no more balance in that relationship, and I agree with all three guys that said what they said before I spoke, but when there's no more harmony, there's no more balance, there's chaos. You can't seem to bridge the gap between what you once had and try to pull everything back together. And it just seems that every time you try to step forward, you can't seem to get it right. Then yeah, that's the time to say maybe it's time to throw in the towel.
Right, right. And same thing for you, Marcus. How, in your opinion, what is an indicator for you that a relationship is in?
I mean, I agree with everybody on the panel. It's just for me, it's like when no one is ready, nobody's willing to put in any more work to build a relationship or work on a relationship. So it's pretty much a combination of everything that was said on the panel. It's just when enough is enough, you just can't take it. I mean, I know sometimes some people stay in there longer than they're supposed to, but you just got to know when to go. So I agree with everyone on the panel and just.
Right. So my next question then is to flip it. How do you know if a relationship is worth fighting for? Right. So that is something that you have to consider. I know for me, how do I know it's time to go is if it's causing me to feel, I start questioning myself and my own self-worth, and obviously trust, infidelity, like that's a wrap. But how do you know that it's potentially something that's can be repaired? So going back to you, Chris, starting with you, like what are some things, or what is one thing, and you might have mentioned it in the previous episode, but what is one thing for you that you can say, okay, you know what, this might be something we can work on?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea because it's like once my mind is there and I'm out, like I can't see myself like, hey, well, maybe if we work on this, and I don't think I've ever been in that situation where it's like, hey, well, maybe we can work this out, or like, nah. Once my mind is made up, I know it's like, hey, I'm time to go. So it's time for me to go. So I'm not sure what it would be for me to say, hey, look, let's kind of work things out.
And that's probably kind of piggybacking on if in the episode where you say you had issues with compromise. So there's no
Yeah.
compromise with you, right?
Like, I'm not going to say there is no compromise because it's not like one day I'm going to just be like, hey, I'm out. This is a wrap. It's probably been going that way. And then it's just, hey, enough is enough. And I have to go ahead and remove myself now. Like, so it's not like I'm going to just wake up one morning and just be like, hey, man, so I'm not feeling this. It's probably been heading that way. And then the light switch finally flipped. And I was like, yeah, I got to keep it moving. But yeah, as far as compromising, like, I mean, I know we talked about that on the episode, as far as compromising and how much compromising should you do in a relationship. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. I don't feel as though that's for me.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. What about you, Keisha? What is something that, even though we just talked about how it's over, what is a behavior or something where you're like, you know what, this might be something that we can.
I would say when two people are willing to put in the work and when their actions are matching their words. It's one thing to say, yes, I'm ready to work on this relationship. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, but your actions need to match your words.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Same question, Nicole. What is an indicator or something that would signify to you that, okay, you know what, this relationship might be something that we can repair?
I once again agree with Keisha. If we can come together with a mutual agreement to put the relationship and make it a priority, to put it first, and your actions and words are going along accordingly to the relationship being a priority, then yes, I think that would be an indication to me to stay a little bit longer and try again.
Okay. Darrell, same question. So we talked about how it's over, but what is something that would signify to you that this relationship could possibly be repaired?
I agree with both Keisha and Nicole. And at the same time, I think when you're in that relationship and you have more positives than negative, barring the infidelity, of course. But if infidelity is not a part of the equation, then I think that if you have more positives than negatives and you guys can actually sit down and have somewhat of a conversation about the direction of the relationship, then I think it could be salvaged in that regard. But at the same time, I agree, both people have to be willing to put in the work to go forward.
Right, right. And Marcus, same question. Like, how do you know if a relationship is something that can be repaired?
I mean, everybody hit it on the head. I mean, just basically change behavior on both parties. Once they go in, everybody's 100% on board. Everybody's working on themselves, doing better, becoming a better version of themselves, and just showing change along with the speaking what you're gonna do, and along with the action. It all works together. So you're able to overcome a lot of things when you change your mindset and change your behavior. So I think that's the number one thing for any type of relationship to manifest or whatever. So I agree with everyone.
Awesome. So the only person that seemed like who really didn't think it was possible would be Chris. So yeah, I'm kind of the same with everybody. It really has to come down to the change behaviors, and if the person's doing it for the right reason, right? People can manipulate a situation and say and do the right things to get an end goal, really opportunist behavior. So, whole observation space, a whole observation moment, a slow moving type of progression just to make sure change behavior has happened and that people are doing things for the right reason, right? Because, like my example, going to couples therapy, and I had no desire to fix anything. I was just going to say I went. So the motivation behind somebody's actions is also very important, because there's a lot of people who can act and get Grammy awards, and is it Grammy for acting or an Oscar, whatever. But so yeah, I think relationships can be repaired, but like everybody said, like change behavior has to be authentic and has to have the right motivation behind it. So yeah. So we're coming up to our hour. We had a pretty heavy month. We talked about some really heavy topics. We were able to laugh through a lot of them, but nonetheless, the whole point is being authentic in relationships. And one thing I have been looking at is just watching other people's relationships and watching how other people kind of maneuver through difficulties, is that relationships for people are so important. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody can have somebody come into their life and just up level them beyond belief. In the same situation, in the opposite way can happen. Somebody can come into your life and freaking ground you. So it's so important who you choose to share space with, who you choose to share energy with. And that's why some of these conversations are so important. So as we go close out, I kind of want to just go through the panel one last time and just focusing on the significance of relationships in people's lives. In your opinion, if you were talking to somebody or somebody was listening right now and was like, why do you think relationships are so important? Or what are some things that you look for in a relationship? What would you tell them? And I'm going to start with you, Chris. What are some key elements that you look for in a healthy relationship that would make it something that would be a beneficial for your life?
I would say first off, with the relationships, know exactly what you're looking for in a relationship. You have so many people that they want a relationship and they want that companionship with someone special, but they don't know exactly what they're looking for. Now, far as with me, I know like the main thing I talk about is just peace, and just having someone that when I'm with, I can feel that peace and that calm and serenity. I mean, I can kind of feel like it's almost when I'm with them, I'm getting away from all of the hectic things that's going on the outside. So when we're together, all of that just goes away. And I mean, I know that's the main thing that I'm looking for.
Okay. And same thing for you, Keisha. Like, what is an element or two that when you find that in somebody, that's kind of the breeding ground for a healthy connection?
I would say someone who is completely healed from past relationships, especially as far as it goes with the opposite sex, and someone who feels comfortable enough to be their true self in front of you from the start versus just trying to be someone else until they feel comfortable. I mean, you should be able to be yourself from day one, and just someone you definitely can have like trust in is someone who's ready and willing to be in a committed relationship.
Right. And same thing for you, Nicole. Like, what are some things that when you meet that individual or that connection where you're like, you know what, this piece is important and I know this is hopefully going to be a healthy connection?
Are we talking about romantic relationships?
It can be either.
Okay, so when relating to me, I look at relationships as an opportunity to grow. So if we are not relating and either person doesn't feel seen or heard or valued, or like we are encouraging each other to grow emotionally, spiritually, multiple ways, then to me, that's not a healthy relationship. One person can be stagnant, but that would be where the other person needs to step in and kind of encourage. And the stagnant person needs to be open to receive that encouragement. So it's kind of like a give and take situation. So that is what a healthy relationship, whether it be romantic, work, or friends, looks like for me.
Awesome. Awesome. And Darrell, same question. Like, what is something that when you make a connection with somebody, you're like, you know what, this is something special and hopefully it would be a healthy connection for you?
When somebody can tell me the goddamn truth, have boundaries, parameters, will admonish me when I'm in error, I say that is a healthy relationship. I don't want nobody blowing smoke up my ass around me. I'm here for a very specific person, a purpose. I don't need the fluff. It's cool. We hang out. We shoot the breeze, all that other kind of stuff. That's nice. But at the end of the day, I'm supposed to be growing it as a human being. And if I can't have people around me to help me to grow, then what the hell are you around me for? To be totally honest. So help me to grow. And I'm all for that. Teach me something. Help me learn something. If you see me in error, say something. Too many times we have these friendships where, or these, I really want to say relationships, not friendships, to be totally honest. That's friendship is something that people should
Something
really
different.
hold. Yeah. Something totally different. But we have these relationships where you got people just let you do whatever you want to do. And they'll laugh at you and they think it's cool when you acting stupid and whatnot. And nobody will hold your feet to the fire. So that's me. Teach me something. Correct me when I'm in error. And I think that's more valuable than anything for me anyway.
Okay. So you want somebody to check you. Got it. That makes sense. That makes
Watch
sense.
it now. Watch it.
I'm just saying. That makes sense. That makes sense. And same question for you, Markis. Like, how do you know when you met somebody or you had something and you're like, you know what, these are important elements. This is something special, and you feel that's going to bring positive energy into your life?
I mean, when you both, truth is a key. Being able to trust. I mean, you're not gonna be able to do it right off the bat. You can sense that in a person at times. Good personality. Don't lie to me. Don't treat me like I ain't that. Just, I was agreeing with Nicole and what Keisha said. Being able to grow with each other and be able to check each other, or whatever. In that aspect point, when you're trying to do things together, somebody's going to encourage you to grow, and I'm going to be there with you through the ugly parts and the good parts. So it's just accountability. But you got to have that. It's like what Darrell was saying. You just don't want nobody blowing smoke up your ass either. You want to be able to trust them, and be able to know that person has your back whenever. So yeah, that's kind of what I look for, or what I would look for.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, for me, it's safety. Like, I need to feel safe. I need to feel safe emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually. Like, I need to feel safe. I can't grow. I can't heal. I can't progress if I don't feel safe, or I feel that somewhere in that space there's a threat. So hopefully the statements that we shared with you all will kind of give anybody listening a foundation to say, okay, I have all this in somebody, so maybe I can look at this, or I don't have this at all, so maybe I need to reconsider. Because at the end of the day, that relationship, especially an intimate partner relationship, that's one of the most impactful relationships you can have. So you want to be really careful on who you choose to let sit in that space, who you let fill that role, because it's like a job interview. You hire somebody who can't meet the expectation, and it can just run your whole business to the ground. So you want to be very careful of who you select to be in that space. So hopefully some of the information you heard tonight can be assistance. And again, thank you all for participating, who was in the chat, who came in. Obviously, Darrell for coming on to the panel, Markis for stepping back in and letting us know he's doing good. He's doing well. Happy to hear him. Happy to have him. And then Chris, Keisha, and Nicole, thank you guys for being here as well. You definitely can find us at www.thelookingglass.fans and on Instagram and Facebook, Relationships Through the Looking Glass. Darrell, you can find him on his platform on All Things Black podcast, streaming on all the places, all the things. But actually, I'm gonna let you do your part, Darrell. Tell them where to find you.
All Things Black podcast. That's a website. It's also all the streaming podcast platforms. And if you happen to go and visit some of the older episodes, I do have a donation page, so make sure you go ahead and tap that out for me. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, for being a part. Hopefully everybody's dealing with the weather that we're having. And everywhere the weather's kind of crazy, and getting past all these wonderful gas prices. So